One of the biggest questions I've gotten over my 30-year counseling career regarding dating is, Sven, what the fuck really are red flags? And like, if everybody's got fucking red flags, then won't I be fucking single forever? How do you even fucking deal with that? And I actually did a post about, 3 weeks ago that continues to go viral. And it was on basically the 5 signs of red flags, or the 3 fucking biggest reasons you fall for red flags, or something like that. And then I did a follow-up. And so the question, what the fuck are red flags? This is really the basic question of red flags. And, does everybody have them, and how the fuck do you identify them? The bottom line is this when it comes to red flags. The biggest mistake people make when it comes to red flags is they're watching the other person. You have to change your point of orientation. You're not looking at the other person and saying, what's wrong with this person? That's not what a red flag is. You have to change your point of orientation from them to yourself, because the bottom line is, someone can have something that is a red flag to Steve, but is not a red flag to Tommy or Justin. So for instance, let's say you meet someone and they're constantly fucking talking over you, right? Well, maybe for Steve, it's like big red flag. It's like, that doesn't make me fucking feel good. I don't like how that feels. I feel disrespected. You're not listening. Whereas maybe for Justin or Tommy, they're like, no, I love that. I love lively conversation where we're just going back and forth. That's not a red flag at all. Whereas Steve feels totally fucking disrespected. Or let's say the person, never apologizes. Well, for Susie, that's no big deal. It's like, as long as they're changing their behavior, I don't need the actual words of apology, or the words saying I was wrong or I hurt you. She's just like, as long as there's a change in behavior. Whereas, Jenny or Bianca may say, no, fuck, I need the fucking words. Okay, so different things are different red flags for different people. So what that means, it's not that there's a problem with that person. It's just that how that person acts makes me feel one way, whereas Steve or Tony, it makes feel a different way. So you have to change your orientation to how does something make you feel. So yes, feelings fucking matter. And to all the macho fuckers who say, feelings don't matter, my response is always, really? Tell me that when your Springer Spaniel that you've had for 12 years, that you've always taken fucking hunting, now fucking dies. He was your best fucking friend and he dies and you don't fucking cry over that? Bullshit, you're fucking lying. All right, so back to this notion of red flags. So how do you identify them? You identify red flags by what's going on inside of me. Fundamentally, a red flag boils down to, I don't like how this feels. Boom. I don't like how this feels. It makes me feel frustrated, makes me feel disrespected, makes me feel hurt, makes me feel angry or sad. Okay? And so then, yes, the question, doesn't everybody have them? Yes, everybody has things that cause me to feel certain ways. Well, then am I going to be single forever? If everybody has things that make me feel red flaggish, won't I be single forever? No. Because it gets to, what do you do with red flags? What you do with red flags is you talk them out. You talk it out. And fundamentally, it's me saying to Susie, when you do this or that, I feel fucking churned up. It makes me feel sad, or it makes me feel disrespected, or it makes me angry that you're just not letting me finish my sentences, or whatever it might be. And so then I put it in Susie's lap. And see, red flags are the best litmus test early in a relationship, or maybe years into a relationship, or maybe 10 years into a relationship. Again, it's not what's happening, what this person is doing per se, that's somehow bad. It's how it's making me feel. And so early in the relationship is when you've got, in some ways, the most skin in the game, because you really want this relationship. And so what do? We overlook red flags. In those 2 posts that I did like 3-4 weeks ago on red flags, I talk about why we miss red flags. But you have to be tuned into yourself. And so it's this great litmus test when I put out there to this other person, here's something in what you're doing that doesn't make me feel good. I'm wondering if you'd be willing to change, or if we could continue to talk about this. Watch how they respond. Do they deflect, deny, dodge, destroy your argument? Do they do something to avoid addressing your red flag? Or do they do something to not have to change their own fucking actions or words or what have you? If so, great. Now the red flag is talking to me, and what it's telling me, the litmus test it's providing, is now I know you don't want to change for me. I'm willing to change for you if shit comes up about me, all right? But is the person willing to change? And if they're not, you kind of have your answer on the fucking relationship and whether or not this red flag is telling you something. And it's basically telling you this person isn't interested in helping to meet your needs in the relationship. It's maybe just about their needs, and that's when you walk. But you don't necessarily walk just because of red flag. One of the goals of red flags is that you talk them out, sort it out, and a great relationship is where you're both meeting each other's needs and your red flags get talked down, changed, and eventually eliminated. So a great relationship is where we're each looking at red flags inside of myself, talking them out and diminishing them. It's not that there's an absence of red flags, but again, it's how it makes me feel. But it's a litmus test in an even better way. Not just that I put out there, what you're doing makes me feel such and such inside, and I'm wondering if you'd be willing to change that. It's a litmus test of me. Do I have the courage to say what I don't like about this fucking relationship? Do I have the courage to put out there how I feel? Now, again, a lot of guys are gonna say, well, fuck, I don't care about fucking feelings. Really, you don't? So if you date women, if a woman makes you feel disrespected, you don't care about feelings? Bullshit. Bullshit. Any guy hates feeling disrespected. You probably, after you've done it enough times, you hate feeling anger. You're always feeling angry. You hate feeling sad. So you acknowledge the significance of feelings. It's not that you don't have them. It's like you just don't want to fucking express them, but you hate how they feel. Well, guess what? They're only going to fucking change if you have the courage to put it out there. So it's not just a litmus test of how they deal with my red flags going off inside of me, but do I have the courage to put my red flags out there and talk about it rather than just becoming inflamed, or rather than just cowering into myself and I don't want to talk to you for a week, or just getting mad? Do you actually have the ability to talk about it? And a great relationship is where we're talking out our red flags and diminishing them. So it's a great litmus test insofar as I can put it out there, watch how they respond, but it's a test of, have I healed me such that I feel comfortable putting my own wants and needs out there? And then third, do I have the courage to admit when someone else has pointed out my red flags? Do I have the courage to listen, to move my ego out of the equation, be open to hearing it? Do I care about this person enough that I'm willing to change for them, just as I see them willing to change for me? And if they're not willing to change, and if I'm not willing to change, why are you staying in the relationship? Sure, you may want it so bad. No, I really, really, really want it. Okay, but the red flags are fucking talking. And you're already admitting that shit doesn't feel good and you don't want to address it. So don't be all pissed off if in a year or 10 years, everything blows to shit. And one last point, and that is red flags, as I said earlier, don't just happen in the beginning. They can start rising up at 5 years, at 15 years. And you got to be just as ready to address how you feel then as you are in the beginning. And it always requires the willingness to walk away, to first talk about the red flags arising in me based on what you're doing, to talk about it. And if changes don't happen, it requires the willingness to walk away. Otherwise, you're going to stay further and further into a relationship that is getting worse and worse because you don't want to acknowledge and talk about the red flags. So are you seeing red flags? Are you not seeing red flags? And if you're not seeing them, go back to those other videos I put up a few weeks ago on red flags. And are you revealing yours? Are you putting out there how you're feeling? Are they willing to change? Are you willing to change? Because if you are, now we're taking those red flags to use to make the relationship better. Have a kick-ass day.